course, it's business. This isn't all, you know, we don't run on emotion, we run on money. We'll continue to collaborate, and even collaboration comes in the form of sometimes stepping aside and letting something happen that is meant to happen somewhere else. The world are expecting AJ to win on July 25, ahead of, you know, destiny fight.
Testing, testing, microphone check, 1, 2,
1 2
1 2. Look who we're here with, Mr. DAZN himself. I have not seen you in ages. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Been hibernating.
You haven't. You've been very, very busy and aggressively targeting other broadcasters. That's what you've been doing.
Other promoters, trying to build out the roster, as always, trying to put more fights on than ever. That's our objective. So yeah, I mean, all seriousness, that does make us very busy. But I've also been away hibernating for a little bit.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
It's good to have you back. Yeah. But we did predict this coming. I think it wasn't here, it was somewhere else, Alfie, where we said that the broadcasting, the competition, somebody with the same drive as DAZN, maybe Netflix, spoke about that before, and then everything started to come into fruition. But your plan for that, Alfie, what was it?
Well, listen, very simply, to, I suppose, over the last 5 years, establish ourselves as the global home of boxing. To your point, there were other people that are participating in the sport of boxing, as is their right, and a lot of them doing very well. Good luck to them. But we need to hold that name, and to do that, you need to constantly evolve and constantly move forward. Work hard to bring in more fights, more promoters, more fighters, sign more deals. Because, you know, there's a lot of noise out there, and there's a lot of press and a lot of people with much larger profiles and louder voices than myself, for example. But the proof's in the pudding. So, you know, we've always said that, you know, if you head to DAZN right now, you're pretty much sorted for boxing up until September. A lot more coming. Not many broadcasters, you know, can say that, and we work very hard at doing that, and that was our objective and remains to be our objective.
Yeah, I like the niche. I saw the advertisement, all of the fighters as well, getting them to plug that every Saturday. It's fight night.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like drumming it into their heads. Listen, if you want to watch boxing, you've got to come over to DAZN.
Yeah.
That's every week you're going to be entertained with fights. But I'm going to push that back to you. Have DAZN got a strategy around the input with the promoters, with the fighters? What I'm saying is promoters can have fighters, and I never mean any disrespect to any of the fighters, but surely for longevity of DAZN, you're going to want certain fighters on your platform. So does DAZN have some kind of input in the promoters and potentially fighters that they choose now? Are you moving into the business side of boxing? It's not just about putting the fights on. If you put in fights on every week, it doesn't matter, Alfie, if they're not all 50-50s or you're not getting the knockouts.
Yeah.
Where does DAZN come into that?
We've always been very active in those conversations. We've always had a voice. We've always worked very collaboratively with our promoters to put on the fights that we know our audience want to see. But listen, these guys are specialists. They're experts. They know what they're doing. They know the talent. It's their job to harness that talent, discover that talent, come to us with the proposal of how they want to grow that talent, and that's when we get involved. You know, we're not out there assuming a role of a promoter and saying, have you thought about this guy, sign this guy, because that will become a very confusing process, which we're busy enough without that. You know, when you look at the roster of promoters that we've got some of the best to ever do it, certainly the best in the world at the moment. So if we didn't trust them, we'd have a much bigger problem. But to answer your question, we absolutely have a say in who fights on our platform. And a lot of that is based on quite boring stuff like, you know, historical performance, social engagement, you know, who wants what, the fights, you know, very cliche. But, you know, our objective is to give the fans the fights that they want, because it will make them come to our platform, which is our job. So.
Yeah, definitely. I do get that. And I thought that would be the case, especially now when you've got to be really aggressive with how you stamp your foot down and say, look, DAZN, this is the platform. You're almost like trying to divert people from looking elsewhere. One of the things and the challenges that DAZN have come to an agreement with was Anthony Joshua fought on Netflix with Jake Paul. It was brilliant. I enjoyed it. But as a broadcaster, how was that for you guys? I mean, Eddie's mentioned that he had a couple of difficult, uncomfortable conversations with DAZN, because obviously Anthony Joshua signed to fight with you guys until he retires. I was there, I remember the signing.
Yeah.
So how are those difficult conversations, and how do you come to that compromise?
Oh, listen, we have difficult conversations every single day. Obviously, that's a particularly difficult one because AJ is such a superstar, and to your point, we invested in him. We continue to invest in him as an athlete and as a
An asset
as
to
a
the business.
superstar and an
yeah.
asset, you know. And you know, it's going to sound a bit corny, but you know, we did that because of what he's done in the sport. And you know, we signed him at a time when he was coming off the back of 2 losses to Usyk. You know, in a bit of a rough patch. If you compare losing to Usyk twice, a rough patch. I personally don't, but you know, optically for the general public, is this the end of AJ? We signed him, and obviously he fought Franklin, was due to fight Dillian White, then fought Robert Helenius. You know, emphatic wins against Otto Wallin, blah blah blah. And listen, the Jake Paul fight came up, and obviously we've got a relationship with MVP and Jake Paul. You know, they've obviously moved to do other things at this moment in time, but we've got a very good practical relationship with those guys as well. So, you know, whilst it was probably a tough conversation, I think, but our interest is the fighter. The fighter wanted to do that. It was that type of fight. It made sense to be on a network that is in, candidly, a lot more households than DAZN as of now. Our objective is to get there eventually at some point. And the focus for those 2 guys was to get tens of millions of people to watch boxing, which I've always said it. I've said it to you and other people. That helps us as well. It raises the profile of the sport, which creates a funnel, which by design they end up coming to DAZN because we have more. We took the L on that fight, for want of a better phrase, because that was what the fighters, AJ in particular, wanted to do. We obviously established the commercial arrangement that made sense to do that, because of course it's business. This isn't all we don't run on emotion, we run on money. And we decided it was the right decision for us, and we were glad to be able to conduct ourselves with respect and decorum for everyone involved, because I like to think we always do that, and we'll continue to do that. But you know, I've said this many times, we'll continue to collaborate, and even collaboration comes in the form of sometimes stepping aside and letting something happen that is meant to happen somewhere else.
And you're going to have that again, because potentially, and this is where things get a little bit weird, we've got the 2 potential warm-up fights with Anthony Joshua and with Tyson Fury. Those are coming up, and then should they come through that, it is based on them winning these fights. They go back
Fury's
over.
not announced yet, right? Still working.
Well, this is what I mean.
I don't know where that's going, but yeah, I mean, look, AJ obviously fights on July 25 in Jeddah against Christian Prenga, who's an unknown entity with nothing to lose.
Kickboxer.
You know, it's just like, the thing is, this is AJ. I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, the world are expecting AJ to win on July 25 ahead of, you know, a Destiny fight, which, you know, is all but done from what we can understand. But you've got to get through July 25. You know, this is a big guy. He's, I think, 20 fights, 20 wins, 19 knockouts, or maybe even 20 knockouts. This is AJ, so you'd expect him to come through it, but nothing's given. You know, cliche again, but boxing doesn't follow scripts.
And sometimes cherry picks can go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, look at Usyk Rico. You know, it's like that was a freak fight. You know, but he was all wrong for him. And Rico prepared amazingly and had a great game plan. Peter Fury in his corner. It's obviously a fantastic coach, great strategist of the ring. Who knows if Christian Prenga's the same? He's obviously not at that elite fighting level. Let's not forget that Rico Verhoeven is a kickboxing world champion. He's like the best of the sport probably has ever produced. But he's not a boxer. And he took arguably the greatest fighter, you know, some people say of all time, certainly in the recent modern era. If Usyk didn't stop him, in my view, I thought he was going to lose on points. But yeah, you know, July 25 on DAZN, AJ, the warm-up fight, Danger Before Destiny.
Danger Before Destiny.
So yeah, and listen, Tyson's obviously it's still open, so we don't know what's happening there. I'm not going to comment on that, I don't know. But
a second fight is going to be going to Netflix again, though, so that's what I mean. Fair enough, you said it's the collaboration and stuff, but I know Anthony Joshua would have brought a lot of eyes back with him from the Jake Paul fight, because we saw the internet went absolutely mental over him. So I understand. But then doing it again, potentially, for the Tyson Fury fight, should that fight happen, once again, it's like DAZN, step aside money while you let him go. And party on another platform, for want of a better word. How do you deal with it a second time?
Well, it's same answer. It's business. You know, it is business, and there's an element of, you know, this fight is a fight that is going to penetrate audiences of people that probably haven't watched even sport in a very, very long time. This is a fight that should have happened years ago. I hate the word should, but it, you know, because it didn't. But it's a fight that people have been waiting for, and it's business. And I can assure you, we're looking after ourselves. But as I say, the proof's in the pudding, and I wouldn't be too comfortable saying that we're willing to collaborate and we're not going to put blockers in the way. Our priority is our business and meeting our objectives. We feel we can still meet those objectives easily without having that fight. You know, so I think, but you know, there's still a lot of work to be done there. We're all talking as if there's like a formal announcement, graphic and date and location. None of that's done. So this is essentially all conjecture. But we work in boxing, so that's what we do.
I get that, and that will lead me on to potentially my final question for you, Alfie.
Yep.
There's one person that's pulling all the strings. There's one person with a huge financial backing, which is Turki Al-Sheikh and Seller. They've got a piece of DAZN pie. They're working with obviously Dana White and Zuffa.
Yeah.
And he's almost all over all of you. Doesn't that create conflict with you guys? Because it's almost, and you know, forgive me for saying this, it's almost like you've all been infiltrated financially and now somebody's calling the shots for everything else.
Well,
how does that affect DAZN?
Well, again, it depends how you look at it. I mean, we look at it as
quite practically. I'm trying to look at it in a practical way.
Yeah. Well, for me, we look at it in the same sense. I mean, look at the content that Seller, Riyadh Season, Ring Magazine has brought to our platform over the last 2 years. You know, we take a lot of responsibility for that because we've committed a lot of time, effort, resource, money to that. But it came from Turki Al-Sheikh, so there's a hell of a lot of good that comes from it. And the same for every single promoter in the sport has participated in shows that have been put on by Turki Al-Sheikh, Seller, Riyadh Season, Ring. It's not just DAZN, and I think that's a good thing because some of the fights that we've seen over the last couple of years would never have happened without an injection of cash, which I think it remains to be, well, the proof is seen that people weren't willing to put up those guarantees or those fees to make the fights happen, so that was why they weren't happening. That's no longer the case. Or at least it's less the case now. Again, they're still running a business and it's not an endless supply.
But now there's a new demon, there's Zuffa, that is looking to take all the fighters. They have Paramount, they have Sky Sports. Yeah. He said he's not competing with boxing, he's competing with the NFL.
I saw that,
That's where his level is.
Yeah. Same as us, has always been. I call ourselves the global home of boxing, but our line is the global home of sport because, as I've always said to you, yes, in the UK and the US, we have other rights, but boxing is our pure play service, and our focus has been to advance that beyond belief, which we have now. But we're a multi-sport platform, so we consider ourselves competition with the likes of Netflix, with the likes of Prime Video, you know, these large properties, the NFL. The thing is, we have existing relationships with all of these rights holders, all of these sports, including the UFC, by the way. So,
Could you clarify that? You've mentioned that, including the UFC, and I saw something online that sort of like tried to mitigate DAZN out of it and say that's not true. But
well, we've broadcast multiple UFC events over the past, right? Germany, for example, they love their mixed martial arts, and UFC is the biggest property in mixed martial arts, and we've broadcast many shows, as well as lots of other territories. That's the value of DAZN. People don't even realise the value of DAZN. You can plug in and you can have your show on 210 regions around the world. No one can do that at the scale and speed that we can. You know, believe me, we set our own competitors. People tell us that our competitors are Paramount. They're a hugely successful business. I'd love to take bits of their business and finesse our own with that. I'm sure people are looking at us and thinking they'd like to do the same. So, listen, I'm not going to get in a... I think Zuffa entering the marketplace has, of course, caused some waves and some friction. I don't mind it. I think it's a good thing. Keeps everyone on their toes. It's entertainment as well, to a degree. Some of the exchanges are quite amusing. So yeah.
I admire your honesty with that. I really do appreciate your honesty. So I'm going to finish on a light one. You've recently signed Boxer.
Yes.
As well. multi-fight? Is it like long-term deal? What is the actual script with Boxer at this time? Because that's another platform, once again, that's joined DAZN.
Yeah, well, look, we haven't kind of announced any time frames at the moment. We're just putting on obviously the Troy and the
To start.
yeah, as a great rematch, and Callum Simpson, which was a brilliant fight. First one was amazing, and second one's taken a bit too long. But we're excited about that, and then they've got plans for shows at the later half of the year, which will be with us as well. But again, it's just bringing in the fighters, the talent, the content. You know, obviously they're established in the UK as a big platform, and we're just excited to add more to our service.
We love it. Listen, ALFIE SHARMAN, ladies and gentlemen, the guy that took the time to speak to me, answer not so easy questions as well. These have been built up for ages. I was like, I'm going to jump on it. But yeah, I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
As always. Ladies and gentlemen, DAZN's ALFIE SHARMAN.